Flattery is a form of control and manipulation.
Looking for the wife of somebody.
And finding out who Felix and Festus really are.
All right, and it's not the uncle in the Addams Family. We'll join you next. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Rod Hembrook.
I'm Janice.
And I'm Corey.
And this is the Quick Study television program. We take you through the Bible in 1 year, all 66 books. And so that means that on this particular day in the month of November, we continue in the book of Acts. Now, a little bit later on, we're going to talk about this because a lot of this goes on in today's world, especially in management and in politics. Here it is. Flattery is a form of control and manipulation. That comes to us from Acts chapter 24. Now, we're going to explain why that's important to know and how to tell the difference between flattery and truth coming up a little bit later on in the teaching segment. We also have the Bible archaeology segment from Corey, which is?
We are exploring the governors who had power over Paul when he was arrested. We're looking at Felix and Festus specifically.
Right, as I said, not Fester.
Not Uncle Fester from the Addams Family, no, Festus.
Although that would be a good question.
The Bible challenge. Get out of trouble. The Bible challenge.
All right. Who is Bernice? Is that the wife of Felix? The wife of King Agrippa? Or the wife of Festus?
You see, it's the Roman names. The
Yes.
Roman names are throwing you off. All right. Well, listen, that and more all coming up a little bit later on. Let's not tarry any longer. Let's move on into study. It wasn't until the 19th century that science discovered all matter consists of invisible elements, very small particles not visible to the human eye. Atoms consist of electrons, protons, neutrons, all of which cannot be seen. Yet the Bible states that according to Hebrews 11 verse 3, everything is made from that which is invisible. A true statement from a book that's over 2,000 years old. Get your Quick Study Pocket Guide. Go through the Bible with us. Write P.O. Box 150, Murraysville, Pennsylvania, 15668-0150. In Canada, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2. We are viewer-supported, and if you'd be kind enough to pray about what God would have you do, remember we are supported by gifts from people just like you. Again, P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2.
Chapters 23 and 24, they speak about Roman governors really who had authority over Paul when he was arrested. It names Governor Felix and Governor Festus, and it's very specific, and that's good because we can go back in the Roman records and learn more about Felix and Festus, which is exactly what I've tried to do for you today. It's a brief overview because there is tons of information that I could have gone into with the Roman officials and whatnot, but I've chosen to just try to simplify it as much as I can so you can reap information that you need to know about these governors who oversaw Paul. Take a look at Felix and Festus. The Roman administrative center during Paul's lifetime was at Caesarea Maritima. It was there that Paul spent at least 2 years of his imprisonment under the governor Felix. Felix, who was a former slave, acted as governor of Judea for 8 years. During his reign, he married the great-granddaughter of Herod the Great, Drusilla, whose name also shows up in the book of Acts. Though Felix protected Paul from those wanting him convicted, his rule was deemed unstable by Rome. Felix was tried and banished. Paul's enemies then tried to take advantage of the changing governorship by asking the new governor Festus to transfer Paul to Jerusalem. But Festus asks Paul, and Paul appeals to Caesar, meaning that he has to be transferred to Rome itself. Festus's rule did not have a chance to play out in the books of history. He dies unexpectedly only 2 years after becoming the governor.
As we begin our studies today in Acts chapter 24 to 26, in all the best performances of Greek-Roman theater, Paul was accused of crimes he did not commit. But like all good Greek-based systems of justice, it's not about the truth. That's not what counts. It's the performance of the lawyers that count. Acts chapter 24 gives us the breach of justice against Paul that brings him into the presence of high political officials. Acts chapter 25 shows us Paul can use their own game to beat them. He appeals to Caesar as a Roman citizen. Acts 26 then brings us the details of Paul's testimony replayed for the officials of Rome.
Acts 24, verses 1 through 15. Now after 5 days, Ananias the high priest came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. These gave evidence to the governor against Paul. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, "Seeing that through you we enjoy great peace and prosperity is being brought to this nation by your foresight, we accept it always, and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Nevertheless, not to be tedious to you any further, I beg you to hear by your courtesy a few words from us. For we have found this man a plague, a creator of dissension among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. He even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him and wanted to judge him according to our law, but the commander Lysias came by and with great violence took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. By examining him yourself, you may ascertain all these things of which we accuse him." And the Jews also assented, maintaining that these things were so. Then Paul, after the governor had nodded to him to speak, answered, "Inasmuch as I know that you have been for many years a judge of this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because you may ascertain that it is no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with anyone, nor inciting the crowd either in the synagogues or in that city. Nor can they prove the things of which they now accuse me. But this I confess to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. I have hope in God, which they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of the dead, both of the just and the unjust." Acts chapter 24, verses 1 through 15.
This is a very interesting journey as we make our way towards the time when Paul's going to go to Rome. It is important for the Bible believer to know the difference between good creative communication and creative lying. Now, Proverbs chapter 26, verses 4 and 5, they say this: "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him." But then it goes on to say in amazing Hebrew poetry, Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. What does that mean? Is that a contradiction? No. It means do not answer a fool with foolish talk like he's using, but rather answer a fool rightly, and don't let him get away with the foolish talk. That is exactly what Paul did in the circuit of political courts here in Caesarea. Today, as we study the book of Acts, we learn and study how evil works with words so we can avoid such talk and understand where our trip-ups can be. Now, it's easy. The Bible also says in Proverbs, in the multitude of words there is great transgression. I like what Psalm 141 says when the psalmist says, "Oh God, put a guard over my mouth." I also like Proverbs chapter 17, where it says, even a fool is thought to be wise when he is silent. Nevertheless, we learn today that Paul had a good command over self-discipline with his words. And the devil was trying to trick him in words, particularly in the courts of politics. But Paul, through the power of the Holy Spirit, overcame it. Let's look at chapter 24 of Acts, verse 1. Now, after 5 days, Ananias, the high priest, came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. And these gave evidence to the governor against Paul. This brings us to understanding evil as fact to live by number one. Evil bent against God has no substance. So evil must resort to entertainment to pitch its values. We see this today in the entertainment culture. There really is no argument against the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, there are people in the entertainment industry who tell us we're fools for believing in Jesus Christ, make fun of us because we believe God created the heavens and the earth, yet they have nothing to say really in the face of an alcoholic or a drug addict being instantly healed. They've really nothing to say about that. Because you see, they have to resort to sarcasm and comic shows and trickery. Just like they hired this great orator to come against Paul. They had no substance, so they had to make an entertainment situation to entertain the ears of the hearers. But Paul overcomes it. Watch this. This is verse 2 and 3. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, "Seeing that though we enjoy great peace and prosperity is being brought to this nation by your foresight, political leader, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness." Wow, that is the biggest bunch of hooey I've ever seen. Yet he's flattering. So it reminds us that flattery is a form of manipulation, not far from politics and human pretense, making gods out of men. And see, this is the problem. Whenever you see flattery and you begin to make idols out of men, you have a whole big problem. You lose the idea of truth. That's why God says, do not worship any other idols. Only worship God. That's the first and the second commandment in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and Exodus chapter 20. That's why the Bible says in Deuteronomy chapter 6, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Don't love anything else more than you love God. That's why Jesus would say, forsake all and follow me. And so when we don't do that, we become out of whack with truth in our society, and all becomes nothing but a big entertainment culture, and we judge truth by how much it makes me feel good. And therefore truth becomes fluid and lucid and untouchable and like trying to nail jello on a wall. But beloved, may I remind you, there is truth. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except through me in John chapter 14. So here we see the greatest politics in flattery. Now, in Acts chapter 24, verses 4 and 6, it gets even better. He says, nevertheless, not to be tedious, Tertullus says, to any further, I beg you to hear, by your courtesy, a few words from us. For we have found this man, Paul, a plague and a creator of dissension among the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Verse 6. He even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him and warned him, and wanted rather to judge him according to our law. Beloved, this brings us to truth to live by number 3. Lying and hyperbole are the normal language twist of evil spirits attempting to appease their host. Beloved, when defending yourself and your character, It is best to remember the words of Jesus to his disciples. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. This is hard for me because I'm a real exaggerator. I love to use hyperbole, but it becomes important for us as believers in Jesus Christ in this world full of pointless and idle words to let our yes be yes and our no be no. Let God defend us. Don't overstate the case. Don't evangelistically speak, but stay focused on the simple truth and the basics. All of these accusations, of course, were wrong. Paul did not have to prove it. He simply presented the gospel, and the gospel made a way for Paul all the way to Rome. And we'll talk about that on tomorrow's program.
As we continue to read through the book of Acts and we see the different systems that Paul is shoved through and that really all of the apostles and all of the New Testament church are having to deal with, they are living in the time period, really the golden era of the Roman Empire. I mean, Augustus has already ushered in this new time, and there's organizations that are set in place that the church is having to deal with. Now, sometimes that benefits the church, sometimes it benefits Paul. For example, he was a Roman citizen, so God used that to give Paul an opportunity to witness to the different governors. And sometimes it was a bad thing, as we see with the records of persecution. Right now, we're looking at the biggest institution, the army. By the 1st century AD, the Roman army was the growing, stabilizing, integrating force of the empire. It allowed for successful economic and political maneuvers, as well as serving as a social career ladder for the common man. At its beginnings, many centuries before, Rome's army was a force made up only of land-owning citizens that could afford to equip themselves with weapons and armor. Military lines were arranged based on wealth and social standing. Hand-to-hand combat was fought in a triple line formation with a checkerboard pattern. In the first row fought the younger soldiers, the second held men in their prime, and the third held the older veterans still of fighting age. Poorer citizen soldiers would aid these lines by luring enemy forces to advantageous positions, while the wealthiest were on horseback, the elite equestrian rank. This style of army proved effective and adaptable in battle. However, the army's organization and unprotected soldier status created havoc after war. In the 2nd century BC, moves were taken to create a standing, professional army, and the poorer classes were finally utilized. Soldiers were equipped equally, were paid modest sums, and reorganized to optimize efficiency. By the 1st century AD, the army was a viable and often attractive option. The legions, which were the largest divisions in the army, employed native citizens of Rome, captured people who had been granted citizenship, and even freed citizen slaves. With hard work, obedience, and some advantageous social connections, one could rise from lowly soldier to respected leader. The legions were supplemented by non-citizen troops, the auxiliaries, who were paid quite a deal less, but upon completion of their 25-year service, they would receive Roman citizenship, and if they wanted, could continue and try to climb to the upper rungs of Rome.
In the dictionary, the word faith is defined as confidence or trust in a person or thing. A belief that is not based on proof, yet will be substantiated by fact. But is this faith? Is faith just a spiritual word for luck? Or is faith nothing more than a New Age term, destiny? The Bible calls faith substance and a real thing, not a mystical belief. Faith in God's ability to act and react in your life has been deeply abused by non-biblical teaching and the ideas of man in our present culture. But now we invite you to join Rod Hembry as he explores and searches out the real power and meaning of real faith in God's power and authority. This is a special audio CD and a DVD Bible study on The Essence of Faith with Rod Hembry. These two discs, one for audio listening in the car and the other is a DVD for watching interactive Bible studies, are available to you for a gift of $20 or more. To reserve your copy of The Essence of Faith, a Bible study on the faith in God's power, write or call today. Write to P.O. Box 456, Orangeville, Ontario, L9W5G2, or P.O. Box 150, Murraysville, Pennsylvania, 156680150. Immediate downloads are available for giving on the internet at BibleDiscoveryTV.com. Strange but true. Places, people. Ancient scribes record amazing truth. Ancient scribes record amazing truth. Flags from different cultures around the world all have the same emblems. The flag of the country of Wales is a dragon. In China and Japan, dragons are revered as their pictures are found throughout both cultures. The many references to dragons in the Bible, as well as early recorded traditions of most nations in antiquity, certainly can't be shrugged off as mere fairy tales. Most probably represent real history of dragons or dinosaurs encountering man before they became extinct. This is consistent with the Genesis record. Some amazing facts from Acts chapter 24 to 26. In ancient Rome, to be a citizen of the empire meant you were a bit higher in class than anyone else. As part of the privileges of Roman citizenship, a citizen was guaranteed a proper trial by the emperor. A Roman citizen was also protected from certain forms of harsh punishment, which was a problem since Paul had been mistreated by the elite religious Jews. So the dilemma was a political nightmare. Also, a citizen could appeal to Caesar, which required the military to take custody of the citizen and carry him directly to the emperor in Rome, where he could plead his case. Paul did exactly that, taking his testimony all the way to the emperor's home. What an amazing story. It could be retitled, "The Emperor Gets Invaded by the Gospel." And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But one of the things we learn is that there's much to learn in the Bible. How we do that is studying with topical Bible studies. So I thought what I'd do is show you what we do on Sunday nights, and we'll be back to talk about it. Here's a brief preview of Bible Investigators.
After the assassination of Amaziah, king of Judah, his 16-year-old son Uzziah took over the throne, reigning for 52 years from Jerusalem. During the first years of King Uzziah's reign, and while Zechariah was alive, he served the Lord, and God made him a prosperous ruler. He was an inventor, a builder, and a gardener, enhancing Jerusalem with many expensive improvements. There had not been anyone like him since King Solomon, but like many great men and women from the pages of history, with prosperity came pride and punishment.
At Bible Investigators, we study sometimes people. We've studied Ruth. This last one, we studied King Uzziah. It's all posted at Bible Discovery TV. You can watch it for yourself and learn as we do about the Bible. We record that on Sunday night and then post it on the internet on video on demand.
We learn a lot.
We do, and there's a lot of interaction from people who are watching as well, exclusively and only on BibleDiscoveryTV.com.
Yep.
Bible Challenge.
Before we go to the challenge, though, I need to say a special hello to Olive from Nova Scotia in Canada, who back at the end of September celebrated her 55th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And she has been a supporter of Quick Study for a number of years now. So Olive, we want to say that we love you very much and congratulations on 55 years of marriage. Now, Corey, in honor of Olive, you need to answer this question right.
Okay, I will try.
All right. Who is Bernice? Was that the wife of Felix, the wife of King Agrippa, or the wife of Festus? What do you think?
I think that was the wife of King Agrippa. No, it wasn't.
Olive, did she get it right? Yes, she did.
Oh,
she did.
You looked at
Was that pause just to add a little
nerve-wracking.
bit of? All right. Okay. Acts 25 verse 13 tells us that yes, she was the wife of King Agrippa.
Excellent job, Corey. We appreciate the Bible Challenge because it challenges us, and I'd like to challenge you. If you're watching this program and you've never supported, may I challenge you to pray about supporting. The amount's not important, your participation is. We are supported by viewers just like you. And so may I ask you to pray about what God would have you do on a monthly basis. When you write to us, remember, you can get the Quick Study Pocket Guide. It is a personal Bible study for you as well. BibleDiscoveryTV.com. You can download it for the e-readers and everything else. It's a lot of fun. Here's Watch and Pray. I think it's time to come home. I think it's time to realize we need some help. If you're like me, you need help. I need help. This life is full of all kinds of trips and all kinds of potholes and all kinds of different things. And in the last 30 years of my life, I have found the help I need. Some say, well, Rod, your Jesus is a crutch. That is exactly correct. Actually, he's a crutch, a wheelchair, and everything else, but he's a healer as well. And without Jesus Christ, I wouldn't have made it. But I made it because I gave my life to Jesus Christ. And so my question to you is, what are you using as a crutch? Alcohol? Drugs? What are you using as a crutch? Jesus Christ is the healer, and he will take all that away. And in the name of Jesus, you can be saved and be delivered from all of that if you would but only come to him just as you are. So I encourage you today, come to Christ and say, Lord, I believe you died on the cross and rose again. Help me today. He will respond. On behalf of Rachel McDonald, producer of the Bible Investigators program, we'd like to invite you to join us on Bible Investigators. Sunday nights at 8:30. That would be Eastern Time. And so if you want to join us, that's BibleDiscoveryTV.com. We also have video on demand, right, Rachel? Yes, she says true. Okay, BibleDiscoveryTV.com.